Islam Makhachev is the reigning undefeated UFC Light Heavyweight Champion, and he will be defending his title against Arman Tsarukyan this weekend, January 18th, 2025 at the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles, California, unless the wildfires spread out there, which we all hope and pray that doesn't happen. And the thing about Islam Makhachev, well, I mean, first of all, he just surpassed John Jones on being on the #1 list at the top of the pound-for-pound champion, and I'm sure Dana White is not happy about that since his boy John Jones just got beat to the second position. But 3 title defenses. He's tied with BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, Benson Henderson, and of course his training partner, coach, and friend Khabib Nurmagomedov, who would have had 10 title defenses if he wasn't beholden to his mom to quit when he really shouldn't have, because that guy could have reigned for years. But then again, it would have opened up the slot for guys like Islam Makhachev to come in, so maybe it was a blessing in disguise, and Khabib then gets to coach a bunch of other people, and also his cousin Umar, who's fighting Merab Dvalishvili in the co-main event. It's crazy that they would have that Merab's title defense as a co-main instead of the main event for another UFC number, like let's say UFC 312 or something, but I digress. Islam Makhachev's hardest fight was his last fight with Dustin Poirier. Yes, he won decisively and definitively eventually, but Dustin Poirier gave him a run for his money, and he really beat him up bad. Dustin did to Islam, but Islam stood in there, and Islam had a lot more opportunities to finish Dustin, and I think that that's part of Islam's problem. I don't want to jump ahead here, but let's just go in order, because I'm going to describe to you Islam's fighting style and Arman's fighting style, and why I think that Islam Makhachev will come out on top, not only in a manner which people do not expect, but in a way that I think will be a lot more improved from his fight with Dustin Poirier. All right, so Islam Makhachev has a very stiff, tight boxer stance that seems to be indicative of certain modern MMA fighters, such as Ilia Topuria. Both of them have this bouncy, deliberate level change, fake body shot motion, where it kind of looks like that they're about to punch you in the stomach, and so they level change and then they come right back up. The difference between Ilia and Islam is that Islam has a very stiff left hand, and like he holds it very high, and he's leaving himself open for left side body shots. Ilia, he's more of a counter striker, and he moves forward, and he doesn't really strike as much as Islam, and that's why Islam is superior in every aspect. And Topuria is still learning, and he's going to get better. But as of right now, Topuria has a lot more experience. That needs to gain a lot more experience before he's even considered on the level of Islam Makhachev. But I digress. So once Islam Makhachev does engage, he's extremely technical. He's precise, almost like a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. But he's applying it to striking, and he's always evolving. He's always adapting, and his performance gets better based on his last opponent. So he learned something. It's like if you watch the first fight between him and Alexander Volkanovski, he was doing his best to try to finish him, and he just couldn't. And that's one of his weaknesses, like I said earlier, but we're going to get into that a little bit later. And after he won a very close decision against Volkanovski, which, he beat him in his home country, so that was pretty crazy. He came back and he knocked him out with a head kick. Yes, Volkanovski was going through some mental issues and problems, and just suffering from a loss prior to that. But actually, he won prior to that. But what I mean is that he had a prior loss against Islam, and then of course he got knocked out by Topuria, which just ruins everything for this guy's life. I hope he bounces back. But Islam Makhachev learned, and he learned, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to finish this guy by submitting him, so I'm just going to have to strike him. Even though that was dangerous, he went for it, because Alexander Volkanovski's striking is what he relies on, and he just went after him. So it was great, and this is why Islam Makhachev is very fun to watch, and he improves every single fight, and he hasn't reached his full potential, and it really does seem limitless, okay? So let's talk about a couple of his strengths. He has underrated striking, which has progressively improved each fight, like I just told you, from the first to second Volkanovski fight, and even if you watch him against Dustin Poirier, it was just really, really good. He is an extremely good counter striker, so even if he misses a shot and his opponent manages to get one in, he will always counter with something really devastating, and he has a great chin, so he can take a beating and not get knocked out, and that's one of the things you need to be if you want to be a championship fighter. You're going to have a great chin. There's no way in hell that you're going to survive in the UFC without one. His striking is very fast. He has a very smooth rear leg high kick, which doesn't seem to be defended well against his opponents, and it gets thrown very quickly and very hard. And he doesn't just have the high kick; he has a very good calf kick and a thigh kick and a body shot, and he has amazing judo takedowns. By the way, his number one attribute, he has perfect judo takedowns. I mean, he practices sambo, but let's be honest here. if he gets you against the cage, you're going down, and you're going to go down a variety of ways. And he knows how to manipulate the legs well. He knows how to apply pressure in such a way which makes you take your attention off of your legs. And he's willing to do these dangerous judo takedowns, which would be dangerous if he did them on concrete, where he's kind of reversing himself and rolling backwards. Something is very unconventional, and you don't see too much. And I'm very shocked that a lot of people who claim to be these breakdown specialists or MMA gurus, whoever you want to call yourself, hasn't pointed this out yet. But he takes huge chances with these judo takedowns, but he executes them so perfectly, and it really is something to watch. And I think it's underrated, and people don't talk about it enough. So go back and watch some of Islam's fights, and you see what I'm talking about. But he has a few flaws, and these might be exploited by Arman Tsarukyan, but I doubt it. But they are glaring to me. He's very susceptible to low kicks because that front leg is always exposed because of his forward moving pressure. And again, I don't know why people haven't capitalized this off of Ilia Topuria, but I mean, that's a pretty easy way to start taking this guy out, is that you just go out right after that leg kick. And, I think that's a good way to weaken him. Another major flaw he has is that after he throws the rear leg kick, he ends up in an orthodox position, and he doesn't make a smooth transition back to his natural southpaw stance. So that's another opportunity for people to counter and just all day getting punched in the face, leg, body, wherever. He is obsessed. Once he takes the opponent down using perfect judo, or sambo, whatever you want to call it. I call it judo because that's what it is. But once he gets him to the ground, he is obsessed with taking the opponent's back rather than finishing on top. And this is why, if you go back and you watch Volkanovski versus Islam 1, I mean, Volkanovski is punching him in the face, which means he doesn't really have good arm control, Islam. And even with Dustin Poirier, it seems that a lot of people are now applying this body triangle where they're not hooking the legs in the traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style, which is a lot more effective for stopping your opponent from having any kind of leverage. Because the thing is, if you have someone's back and your back is against the canvas and you're using a leg triangle, you're not controlling their legs, which means that they can bridge up and they can use all of that pressure and leverage against you, which makes it very uncomfortable for you and makes it very distracting for you to concentrate on doing the proper motion to get the neck open to apply the rear naked choke. And this is a major flaw with Islam Makhachev. And he should just focus on finishing on top, whether it's ground and pound. I mean, he has an amazing Darce choke. We saw the way he finished Charles Oliveira and the way he finished Dustin Poirier. He finishes on top, and he does it very rapidly. He just has this obsession with wanting to get that rear naked choke, and it leads to missed opportunities because he can easily convert it to an arm bar. He can easily convert it to a rear triangle, which has been done a few times, but he just doesn't do it. He is completely obsessed with finishing the rear naked choke. He's wasting so much energy, and you could tell because he's kind of drained in the later rounds, even though, of course, he beat Dustin Poirier, but he just outlasted him. It doesn't mean he wasn't drained. It just means that Dustin Poirier had less stamina than he did. But this over-reliance on the body triangle with his legs, instead of using classic Gracie Jiu-Jitsu leg hooks, Dustin Poirier was bridging. He was using his weight against Islam. Islam Makhachev is making Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wipeout mistakes. He's not pushing the elbow of his opponent to remove the arm so that he can slip the opposite one in there. That's basic rear naked choke technique that any white belt will learn before he gets his blue belt. Dustin Poirier's arms were open. They were flailing all over the place. They were open for reverse arm bars, kimuras, triangles from the back. None of that happened because he's obsessed with finishing that rear naked choke. If he just learned how to apply the arm bar and the kimura and the triangle from the back, from that rear naked choke position, he would have a lot more submissions. He would be even more dominant than what he is. But I mean, the fact that he couldn't finish Dustin Poirier in the first round, despite having he had like 3 minutes to do so. And again, this also happened with Volkanovski. So that's his most major flaw. And I really can't pick out anything else because he has the stamina, he has the chin, he has the technique, he has the takedown domination. And I think that all of these things are going to play a major role when he fights Arman Tsarukyan this weekend. Now, Arman Tsarukyan has this stance, which is almost identical to Islam Makhachev's and Ilia Topuria, but he has an even higher guard than Islam. And his left hand is always kind of pawing like a cat in like this weird circular motion. And with this like weak, lazy jab. And he's obviously testing distance. And when he does jab, it's usually followed up by a flurry of strikes. So it's very predictable. Now, he has a good leg kick, but he just signals it with this open rear hand and it moves forward and you can kind of tell it's coming. Wide open for body shots, and his front leg is exposed, of course, because Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev, and now Arman Tsarukyan have this exact same kind of bouncy stance, which leaves him exposed. Now, Charles Oliveira also exposed Arman's weaknesses in under 2 minutes of the first round of his last fight. He takes down Arman, and Arman Tsarukyan looked completely lost in the bottom, and he was using his neck to prevent getting choked. He was forced to escape using just brute force rather than technique. I mean, he looked like he was panicked. If he tries this with Islam Makhachev, he'll be submitted by a mounted Kimura or some other key lock, because there's no way in hell that Islam is going to allow him to get away with that. Now, what was weird to me watching his fight against Charles Oliveira is that Charles Oliveira missed an opportunity to perform a classic Gracie Jiu-Jitsu arm lock from the mount when Arman exposed both of his arms upwards. I mean, oh my, it's like, again, this is going back to like the mid 90s where like the Gracies put out these training videos. If you're on top and you're in a mount position and your opponent puts both of his arms up, I mean, you lock one arm, you spin to the side, and you do what Mackenzie Dern just did to Amanda Khibas the other night, and you fucking armbar. But Charles Oliveira didn't do that. I don't know if he was looking for some specific move, but he could have easily submitted him with an armbar, but he didn't do it. Very, very weird. Very, very weird. Now, when Arman Tsarukyan finally did manage to get a reversal on Charles Oliveira, and he ended up in Charles Oliveira's guard, he looked completely lost. Now, I don't understand the stupid thing that the UFC puts at the bottom of the screen where it says control time. If you are in someone's guard, you are not controlling them. They are controlling you, because that is the foundation of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, is that if I am on the bottom and my legs are locking you up and I'm just throwing you around from the bottom, you're not in control. I'm in control. And what Arman Tsarukyan should have did, he should have just stood up, but he wasn't even putting together any kind of strikes when he was in the guard. Oliveira had him in complete control. And again, go back and watch this fight. You can see what I'm talking about at the bottom of the screen. It said that Arman Tsarukyan was controlling Charles Oliveira. No, it was the other way around. I mean, Charles is like hitting him with elbows and punches and just really fucking him up. So there's no way in hell that Arman Tsarukyan was controlling Charles there. So it's just crazy. It's a stupid stat, and I don't know who came up with this idea that if you're in someone's guard, you're somehow in control. No, you're in their guard. They have you locked up. I mean, you basically can't use your legs. So that's it. By the way, he did try to get up at one point, and he was kicked in the face, and it was, the ref stopped it, and it was labeled an illegal strike. All right. Now let me tell you why it's not an illegal strike. Yes, he was down. He was definitely down on the ground. But two fighters were down on the ground. You understand what I'm saying, right? That rule, okay, look, this is exactly what the rule says, okay? It's in the foul section 14, designed to prevent standing fighters from soccer kicks or stomping grounded opponents. That means if Charles Oliveira was standing up and he kicked them, or if he soccer kicked them, or if he stomped them, that's illegal. It's not to prevent two grounded opponents from kicking each other. Nowhere does it say that. Listen carefully. This is a direct quote. Quote, kneeing and or kicking to the head of a grounded opponent. A grounded fighter is defined as any part of the body, either sole of the feet touching the fighter area floor. To be grounded, the palm of one hand, a flat palm, must be down. A flat palm, by the way. So in other words, you can't simply put your fist down. All right, it has to be a flat palm. And or any other body part must be touching the fighting area floor. A single knee arm, not fingers. It says it, not fingers, makes the fighter grounded without having to have any other body part in touch with the fighting area floor. At this time, kicks or knees to the head will not be allowed. Where does it say if two fighters are down, you can't kick each other in the face? It makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense that if I'm on the bottom and I'm basically in a very vulnerable position, that I can't kick you in the head if you're trying to get out of my guard. It makes perfect sense if you're getting out of my guard and you try to kick me, that should be illegal. That's what this was made for, okay? This had nothing to do with, Charles Oliveira doing something illegal. It's just idiotic. Go back and watch the fight if you know what I'm talking about. It's a controversial thing that no one sees to bring up. Where are all you people critiquing this shit? God, man, MMA guru, my fucking ass. Arman Tsarukyan does have some creative combos when he moves forward. It's very reminiscent of Robert Whittaker, but he has absolutely zero head movement. This is what Dan Hardy will call, quote, leaving your head on the center line, unquote, which basically a skilled counter striker would have exposed easily. But Oliveira just blocked and retreated. He didn't know how to counter strike this stuff, and it was very easy because Oliveira prefers that clinch, that classic Thai clinch striking stance, and he likes to use a lot of elbows and knees. Islam Makhachev would have had a field day with this guy, and trust me, he will, because if Arman tries this shit, he doesn't move his head around, he's gonna get knocked in the head by Islam Makhachev. So another major flaw with Arman Tsarukyan, he has a problem with his combos. They're very wild. He has this looping hook, cross type strike, and just like occasional inconsistent power. What I mean is sometimes he'll throw it with power, sometimes he'll throw it weakly, and he's always off balance. And again, very reminiscent of Robert Whittaker. He has this forward motion where he's just desperate to get the strike, but you can't have power behind it if you're off balance. You need to be balanced. So that is the basic summary of both of these fighters. If Arman Tsarukyan wants to win, he's going to need to be extremely patient and rely only on counter striking. That means no wild shots, no off balance counter fucking strikes, no off balance flurry of fucking combos that you learned in fucking Georgia. Number 2, forget about the ground game. Use it defensively, stand up. You do not want to go to the ground with Islam Makhachev. Islam Makhachev is better than you are on the ground. Trust me, you don't think so? Play that fucking game, see what happens. Number 3, try to bring Islam to rounds 3 and 4 and then unleash with your classic centerline striking, which may evade a now tired Islam Makhachev. Meaning, get Islam tired, then you could pull off your sloppy shit, and it might work because Islam's a little bit slower. So there's your strategy for Arman Tsarukyan to win. So there's the basic strategy for Arman Tsarukyan to win. But Islam Makhachev, this is all he has to do. All he has to do. Number 1, expose that front leg and destroy it with low leg kicks. If he mixes it up, great, but I'm telling you, he's gonna weaken this guy with a bunch of leg kicks. That's it. That will start the beginning of the end for Arman Tsarukyan. Number 2, expose the open body shots and weaken his core. Make him lean forward. You want to finish him with a high kick? Fine. But go for that leg, make him lean forward, expose his core, because like I said, Arman has this weird kind of pawing stance where he's exposing his body. Just Islam has to blast that shit in the first round. Then, of course, Islam goes to his classic takedown. Forget about the rear naked chokes. Focus on your top game submissions, Kimuras, anacondas, Darce chokes. I don't care. Don't try to finish the rear naked choke because you look like a white belt when you try to do it. But here's what I think is going to happen. This is what I think is going to happen. Islam Makhachev will win with an early submission, most likely in the second round. But there is one caveat. Islam Makhachev is always improving. He's always evolving. He may bring new techniques that we haven't seen yet, so it might not be a submission. It might be a knockout. Now, Arman Tsarukyan seems to be the same old Arman Tsarukyan because we saw that in the Charles Oliveira fight, which just happened. He doesn't look any different, and he seems to be intent on wanting to knock out Islam. If you listen to all of his latest conversations, he wants to knock out Islam Makhachev. He thinks he's a better striker. He's on crack. I don't know who his coaches are, and I really don't care, but whoever the fuck is getting into his ear and saying that he's a better striker than Islam Makhachev is smoking some serious Georgian crack, all right? So unless he worked on fixing his ground game, he's going to lose really quick, and he's going to be submitted. So in order for Arman Tsarukyan to win, he's going to have to change his style. If Islam Makhachev wants to win, change absolutely nothing. Islam Makhachev will win and defend his title for a record 4th time in the UFC, the most title defenses in lightweight UFC history, and he will reign as the lightweight champion for years to come.